Hans here for Brutus Monroe. Today we're going to create this fun light up card. Let's go over the products I used to create this card. First thing I used was the large stamp set called Radiant Rainbow, and this has a lot of wonderful rainbows, smaller images, a sun, cloud, and so forth. I created a background panel here using our Chroma Glaze and our new stencil called Groovy Grid. And this is the stencil right here. And I was looking for a piece of black cardstock to place behind it so you can see it better. Let me just move this. Okay, there you can get a better view. It's just fun, groovy shaped grid. It's like wonky. I love it. So it just goes in and out like this. And it creates a fun kind of 3D effect on your panels. So I used, like I said, Chroma Glaze with this, and I created a rainbow effect in the background. So the glaze I used were red, coral, yellow, and I'm going to mix yellow and coral together to get our orange, lime, teal, and purple. And I used those through our grid. Now we're going to be using our Radiant Rainbow. Like I said, we're going to use from this just the sun and the clouds. We're going to use also the sentiment that reads, "Let your light shine." I quickly grabbed here from Fun in the Sun dies. I need the circle here, and this is from the sun layering part. As you can see, there's a smaller circle that creates your what do you call that? Your beach ball. But I'm going to use the sun one to die cut our sun that we need for this, because I don't have the dies to coordinate with this stamp set available to me right now, so I'm going to use that. So we're also going to bring in something different. We're going to use fiber paper, and fiber paper is this soft textured type paper. Let's see, if you're a sewer, it kind of reminds me of interfacing. If you're not a sewer, let's see, you know what everybody is, we all wash laundry and dry laundry. It reminds me of a dryer sheet texture, but it's not scented. So you can put different things on it and create different textures. So basically it's a surface building texture specialty paper. So we're going to use that to create our sun. So it's something different. It's transparent. Well, not transparent exactly, because it's opaque, but you can kind of see through it, like similar to vellum, you know, in that aspect. And also, if you're going to heat it, like I will, it will burn. So you have to be careful with it, you know, not to leave your heat tool on it too long. We're going to bring in some Chroma Mist in Bumblebee Yellow and embossing powder in Gilded. It's beautiful gold. We're going to use our Raven Detail ink to stamp our images. This is because it'll be easier for you to see on film, you know, on the video. So we're going to be bringing in Easy Lights from Pear Blossom Press, because we're going to create this light up card. And these are super easy to use, hence the name Easy Lights. So this interactive card is going to be lots of fun, you'll see. Alright, so I think that's it. No, you're going to need a hole punch, so I brought in my crocodile, the big one. And I think, so here, let me explain what we're also going to be using. We're going to be using our specialty paper in gold, and this is actually in Gilded. And then Not Your Mama's cardstock, I have a card base made out of that, and we're going to create an A2 card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So, and I also have 2 more little pieces of the same for our sentiment. I went ahead and used some dies from my stash to kind of give me a sort of fishtail end here. I cut them in half because I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm just going to have a little sticking off. And then I have 2 extra little tiny pieces. This is going to be this is Perfect Blend cardstock, and I'm going to use this for our clouds. And we're going to need 2 clouds for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and clear all of this off my desk so we can get started. First thing we're going to do is do our clouds. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up my image, and for this one I'm only inking the center not the center, the edge of my cloud, not the center is what I mean to say, because this is the one where we're going to use to indicate where to push to turn on our lights. And then the other one, we're just going to go ahead and ink up and stamp full. So then I'm putting on our Gilded embossing powder, shaking off any of the excess, putting the extra back in our little embossing powder pot, and now we're going to heat set these. So I heat from front to back to minimize our warping and get even heat coverage. Once that's set, I do the next one, and then I set them down for a second to cool off, and then I'm going to trim these. I will fussy cut them. Like I said, I do not have the coordinating dies for this stamp set. There are coordinating dies available. So now I went ahead and cut out my circle from the surface paper using the die, the circle die, and I'm going to ink up and stamp this image of the sun onto this. I use a little embossing powder just in case, embossing powder, anti-static powder, and then I'm going to stamp it, and I'm going to go ahead and add our embossing powder to this. And the anti-static powder does help a bit because this paper tends to grab everything because it's fibrous, so that helped keep it down to a minimum. So again, you want your tool to be hot and ready to go. Think of, like I said, like you're heating vellum. You don't want it to be direct heat on it. You want to keep moving it quickly and take your time, let it cool a little bit here and there. I got one little section got a little too hot, but I was able to pull it apart, stretch it a little bit, and it came out okay. It tends to curl and then it burns. So ask me how I know. Because my first time I did this backwards. So now I'm going to bring in our Bumblebee yellow Chroma mist spray to add color to our sun. So how do I know that this will curl up and burn? It's because before I did this, I went ahead, I'm using a BG quadruple 0 to get a little highlight on our clouds. All right, so I went ahead and stamped the word push on one of the one cloud that I left the center out of, and I'm going to set that aside. All right, so I brought in my new clean stick and stamp mat so I can stamp my sentiment on here. I'm doing this because I already die cut my little piece and it will move and I don't want anything to move. All right, so I'm going to put a little anti-static powder on here and I will stamp the sentiment. So before, when I was practicing to make sure this would work for my project, I did this backwards. I sprayed my mist onto the fiber paper and then heat set it. It was okay. It didn't, I did really good with that part. Then when I went to put my embossing powder on it, I guess the paper was still a little damp and I didn't feel like it. All the embossing powder stuck to it, so then I had to use a brush to get any excess off. And then I went to heat set it and it started to warp and then it basically curled up and burnt. So it was just too much stress on that. So this is why I did it backwards and it worked out a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to emboss our sentiment again with the Gilded embossing powder. I'm going to now heat set this, and again our sentiment reads, "Let your light shine." So I'm going to heat that until it's completely melted, and it's set when it goes from that dull gold to that really shiny gold, or any embossing powder, no matter the color or if it's clear. If it's dull on there and then it goes to a shiny, it's heat set. Okay, especially shiny and smooth. All right, so all of our little images and components are set. Now let's bring in our panel. So here's our panel. It's all dry, and I know I want to put my sun between the oranges and the yellows, picking up those sun tones, and everything else here. I want my push mechanism here to let you know to light up your sun, and their sentiment towards the bottom and another cloud. So now that I have a general idea of what I want, I'm going to mark off some holes to where I want my little lights to shine through. Before I do that, I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. I'm going to end up with this panel being 4 by 5.5, so I have a nice matte showing all the way through of our gold specialty paper. I'm going to save that little strip on the end there as you sew off for the inside of our card. So now I'm going to adhere this panel, our Groovy grid panel, to our gold specialty paper. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up. Once I have that all set, I'm going to go ahead and mark our panel so I know where to punch our holes. I'm using a scrap pad here because my desk still has little, I could feel it, little grids, little pieces of embossing powder still on it, and I don't want any of that to stick onto my front of my panel. So I'm using a pencil to kind of mark out where I want to punch my holes. And what I want to do is going to create a small triangle type grid. So I want each of the holes to land on by the sun's little cheeks, and then one above it, so I sort of like glowing down, and then the cheeks shine up. So I'm going to use some foam tape here to adhere my sun to my panel. So I start out this way. It's not going to stick very well onto the fibrous paper this way, especially since I put wet glue. I just wanted to make sure I had a good bond. It didn't work. So what I decide is I'm going to go ahead and go through this whole thing just to get the right thing going on here, the right circumference. Once I get that going, I will have to stick this little foam tape strip onto my card, directly onto my card. As you can see, it sticks better if you stick the foam tape to the card. I'm working the fibrous material, takes a bit to stick, and I also added wet glue. Didn't think that whole thing through. Then I have to end up taking it off anyway, readjusting. You'll see. Alright, so the easy lights are simple to use. You have to pull out that little paper that comes in between the battery and the connector. Make sure your battery's in correctly, and then you just squeeze the button and those little lights turn on. Everything else, that's it. That's how you set it up. And now all you have to do is figure out where you want your lights to land and place them down. I want mine, I had to adjust one of my holes here because I made it too far over. So then you just want to go ahead and line those up. So now I can adhere. See, I needed to move it over because I couldn't see it, so I had to repunch my hole. Alright, so once I get my sun back on there, once you know where everything's going to go, all you have to do is hold the lights down and where the holes are. So I'm just going to use little pieces of washi tape to hold my lights in place. Then once I have that, I test. Everybody's working. Everybody's looking good. I can flip it over, and then I have to tape down the mechanism that holds the battery. So just washi tape. That's all you need. I mean, you can use Scotch tape as well, just to hold the mechanism in place and the lights in place. And that's only because I want the lights to go in a specific area. If you want all your lights to go into one area, you just twist them nicely, put them there, put a little washi or Scotch tape to hold your lights in towards the opening that you've made, and to hold your mechanism. Okay, so I have everything all set. I made a small little hole for my little push button to go through. You don't have to. I did that because I have so many layers of cardstock, and I wanted to make sure everything went through and the lights would turn on if I pushed there. Alright, so I have some double-sided foam here. It already came, it's from my stash. It already has adhesive on it. It's double-sided. Yeah, double-sided adhesive foam. But if you don't have something like this in your stash, you can use regular craft foam, or of course, foam tape to just put around your card here, because you just want to give it some height, because you need the mechanism to be hidden within the card. So another option you can use is a foam board. Go buy some foam board at the dollar store, and then add some adhesive on both sides, and it gives you the same concept. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and add our panel to our card base, and as soon as I get that down, we test it one more time. Okay, so now it's time to add all the little components to make sure everybody's on here. Now for the cloud that says push here, I'm going to use tear tape. Don't want any liquid adhesive oozing into our mechanism and stopping the push button. Once that's set, everything else will get foam adhesive. So the top cloud here, I'm going to put some foam dots behind it, and then our sentiment, I'm going to use a little tear tape just to adhere the papers together, and then I will add foam adhesive behind it to add it to our card. And I did too, I have that little bit of that specialty paper sticking out, creating that little double banner, just to bring some of that into the center of our card a bit. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little foam adhesive to the back here, cutting up my foam strips, and this is going to go towards the bottom here, to the bottom left. Getting this last bit of foam adhesive on here, and this is going to be nice off the edge here. There we go. So we have the gold throughout because our sun has gold, our clouds and our sentiment, and then that beautiful specialty paper all the way around. So to finish our card on the inside, that little strip I saved, I'm going to adhere it towards the bottom here, using a little Burley Art glue here to just get it on there, trim off the excess, and our card is complete. So you have your little push mechanism, and there your sun's cheeks light up. It's so much fun. I'll have everything in the description box below for you. Thank you for being here, and I hope you found some inspiration.